Are there any other questions from the audience? Yes, Aaron. Okay. Just generally, for the folks who are watching TV, the question is on the role of government in our lives, and then the first part of the question was just to get your take on the abortion issue. So those were the two questions.
If you don't mind, I'd like to handle number 2 first.
Sure.
On the Constitution. I look back at the intent of the framers, what was in the minds of Jefferson and Adams and George Mason and Ben Franklin. What were they wrestling with when they derived this document, and understand where their predecessors came from was hundreds, if not thousands, of years of being ruled by monarchs. And one of the problems about being ruled by a monarch, and you may have a wonderful king, he may be great, for his life, but there's this rule of succession that comes under monarchy, which means his kid, his oldest child, gets to be the next king or queen if it's a girl. And you, as a subject, have no choice in that. And the next in the succession may not turn out to be such an enlightened leader, but you're stuck with that and have to live through their life and hope that the next generation will be. So they wanted to divorce us from that kind of autocratic authority and create a system of laws in which we could govern ourselves. And they were very much wrestling with what is man in his natural state? Where do we come to balance? And they believed in a concept they called our divine will. And it's our divine will to, 1, be free, 2, to be free to stay alive. A king could say off with his head. And there were public hangings that would happen frequently. It was, like the Sunday Super Bowl or something. People would go down to town square, watch a hanging. People's lives were not their own. They weren't guaranteed the right that from the day they were born they would be allowed to go ahead and live to the end of their lives. The other is that they could live free of any tyranny. If the King of England wanted to go to war with France, he'd say, "Mount up, boys." And if anybody said, "Well, I'm busy this Friday," off with his head. There was no choice in the matter. We wanted to have some liberty, and we wanted to be, we believed, or I should say the framers believed, that we should be free to pursue our own happiness, meaning that each individual should determine for him or herself what would fulfill him as a person of his community, and be free to go ahead and pursue that, unfettered. And in order to recognize this divine will that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, those are unalienable rights, as they called them. Those are not derived from government. That's derived from our wanting the best for ourselves and our belief in a higher being that wants that for us. We will create a government, and we will give over to that government the duty and the responsibility to protect and preserve our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's the sole function of that government, to make sure that it would operate in a fashion that could serve those noble ends. They set up this balance with a 3-part government, with an executive, a judiciary, and a bicameral legislature. And it's all very delicately balanced. And when Thomas Jefferson said to us, "I give you your democracy, I only hope you can keep it," I advise, have a revolution every 20 years. Now, he wasn't talking bloody revolution, but he was talking of the values that are expressed in our Declaration of Independence. And that if we saw our government become unbalanced, where an executive overreached and a Congress was too weak to stand up, or the court wasn't properly interpreting the Constitution and giving too much authority to the president, he said we'd always know it because we would see an autocratic executive arise. And that's the example that we've had. Problem is, we haven't seen the Congress stand up, and it has full authority and power to do it through the process that's mentioned 6 times in the Constitution, that being impeachment. And yet, for political purposes, for fear that they wouldn't do well in the 2008 election, Nancy Pelosi says, we're not going there. Impeachment's off the table. There have been 9 presidential impeachments in the history of the United States. In each and every instance, the impeaching party has prevailed in the following presidential election. Why this Speaker of the House thinks that history's different, and what's her precedent for believing that the Democrats would fail if they stood up to this executive? I think they'd be national heroes. Everybody would breathe a sigh of relief. But this is the way she's been running it. So we create this government to preserve our unalienable rights. And so long as they're doing a good job at that, we should be happy with them. But when they're not, and when, as I feel, back in December of 99, what was it, 2000? Yeah, in December of 99, January of 2000, when the Supreme Judicial Court, which operates under, not Supreme Judicial Court, the Supreme Court of the United States, which operates under a canon of judicial ethics. One of the canons is you shall not be involved or even give the appearance of being involved in electoral politics, period. All right? All of a sudden, the Supreme Court is ordering a Secretary of State to stop counting the people's votes. As far as I'm concerned, the court failed. And then we've had the situation with the executive that came into authority under that Supreme Court ruling and a Congress that won't stand up. And we're seeing that we're losing our civil rights, our constitutional rights, and we have been hamstrung, and I hope you're hearing some of the frustration in my voice as you are about release of the oil from the reserves, about release of venerating our rights under the Constitution and settling back this overreaching executive. So again, that's my take on the balance of powers as envisioned by the Constitution, about what our government was set about to do for us. And we should recognize that when we elect someone to office, though they have been elected to office, no power is transferred unto them until they put their hand on a Bible and raise their hand and swear on their oath of office to preserve, to protect, to defend our Constitution against all enemies. We must remain vigilant, because if we see them wavering from that duty, we need to replace them, because our very life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, we've placed in their hands and given them all that power. They better do their job right. They work for us. And yet I see progressive group after progressive group approaching our senators, approaching our congressmen on bended knee. Oh, I hope you won't think I'm being of any affront when I ask if you would consider da-da-da-da-da. That is not the proper attitude. A citizen of the United States is sovereign. That's what the meaning of a republic is. Remember, I remember as a kid pledging allegiance to this flag and to the republic for which it stands. What that word republic means is different from a monarchy. In a monarchy, the king is sovereign. Everyone else in the nation bends on knee when he walks by. In a republic, every citizen is sovereign. Every citizen is equal. And we set that government to work for us. And so that's a different attitude that I have taken since I've become a bit frustrated with the way I see our country going. I'm going to come now to your, unless you have any further questions on that and what I see the role of government under the Constitution.